What's up everybody, my name's KSaun and welcome back to the WDL, War of the Visions Draft League Week 2. If you haven't seen my previous draft analysis video or the results of the Week 1 matchups, I highly encourage you to check those out. You missed some absolute bangers last week. So, from last week, we have our standings right here. This is where we left off. We have a 5-way tie for first. Obviously, through only 1 week, half the teams have to win. So half of the teams have 3 points. That's Turambar and the Fire Ferrets, Sandrooster with the Slim Chance Brigade, JEBAW with the Sappers, Unhindered with the Perfect Storm, and SurfTaco with the Sheerans, all tied for first. 3 teams did win a game out of the series, even though they didn't win the entire series. That would be myself with Soldier First Class, Dr. Dickhead with the Golgari Swarm, and MaechenX with the Wondrous Shoopufs. So that means we are in a 3-way tie for 6th, and there are 2 teams bringing up the rear with Spike and JesusLBL, Bebop's crew, and the Strawhats, so I'm sure they're going to look to turn it around this week. And for our first matchup of Week 2, I figured we'd start off with a banger. 2 teams who started out 1-0 after last week. We have JEBAW, who previously beat me, and Unhindered, who took down Dr. Dickhead last week. So, should be a really good matchup between these 2 teams. I did edit these graphics a little bit for you guys. I got some feedback that you guys wanted to be able to see the wins and losses and stuff like that for each unit. And I also threw in the KDAs for each unit too. So the more and more we go out through this season, you should be able to get a lot of valuable information on this graphic on how each specific unit is doing and stuff like that. So to start this off, I also want to point out that I did add the guild names for every player here. So a little shout out to their guild representing for their groups and all that kind of stuff. So JEBAW is a member of Rebirth and Unhindered is a member of Saffron. So without further ado, let's get into this matchup. So some things about Unhindered basically that I want to point out is, for the most part, his team is Wind, right? So I think a possibility of what we could see is an Oron coming out, which would be really, really exciting. I would love to see some Oron action here. Unhindered also could predict that, though. May be able to read into that saying, hey, I expect him to bring Oron. I could see him bringing a fire team to kind of counteract that, so that's definitely possible. The wild card is also, you always have Zazan, right? So you could always run Zazan with any other 2 units that you have if you're Unhindered. So I think that'll be really interesting. Last week, he ran Ayaka, Lorela, and Lucia together as a pairing, and then when he lost match 2, he ended up switching to June, Luartha, Winter, and Zazan. So very, very interesting. We'll see how his team plays out. And on JEBAW's side, his strongest team from last week was certainly the Ibara, Dario, and Ravis combo. Having those 2 MR tanks, both with 5 starting hate, is kind of difficult to deal with because you almost have to eat through 2 units before you can even touch Ibara, which is scary because she does not need many hits to take out a unit. So I could see him running basically that same comp as well. I could see him just not switching it up, but I could also see him, like I said, running something with Oron. So without further ado, let's see how this match played out. All right, so for match number 1 here, we've got Unhindered versus JEBAW. Like I said, 2 3-0 teams. Very high magic stat coming out from Unhindered, but he is flexing that Zazan. So I'm curious if he's bringing 2 mages. We'll see what happens. He is. So it's running that Zazan, Regalia, Glaciella, and Rain composition. So very curious to see how this pans out. JEBAW is running his standard Ibara, Ravis, Dario team. I think he may just run that until it doesn't work, right? Interesting buff here. Regalia, Glaciella popping the magic attack up between her and Zazan. Obviously, that doesn't really give anything to Zazan, but it's probably just sort of a formation here to try and get Rain out front, which kind of makes sense. So he buffed up, it looks like, his defense and spirit here. And looks like Dario and Ravi's also just going to buff themselves here. So everybody trying to get a little more tanky. Maneater going to be a nice buff onto Rain, but the attack up really doesn't give him much. But again, this is more just movement based. I think he's trying to get Rain to tank and get out front. The one thing I will point out is that Rain has not used his hate buff yet. So, and it looks like he's not going to. So Rain, to my knowledge, unless he has a VC on him, does not have any hate currently right now. Ravi's actually goes for the Steel Heart. The charm does not land. That could be pretty huge. Dario draining seal. Okay, doesn't do a whole lot to Rain, so Rain's doing a nice job there. But Izayoi, one-shots Regalia, Glaciella. This is kind of what I was talking about. Rain does not have hate right now, so that could come back to bite them. And he's going to go for the limit break. We'll see how much damage this does. Ravis is not the most effective magic tank. Actually, it's into Dario. Dario actually took a pretty good chunk there, so good damage coming up from Rain. Killer Cross takes him out, so very, very nice, but you still have this Ibara here, which is a huge problem. Blade Bash does not land the stun. Zazan's still alive, but I imagine she's going to go for an AoE. She does. Counterman Slash. Rain down to about half health. I don't know how he's going to pull this out unless he has Magic Reflex on. He could pull this out if he is able to kill the Ravis, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Malevolent Lightning is going to come down, and I'm certain this is going to take him out. 8,112 damage. Absolutely. So it looks like JEBAW is going to pull out the win in match 1. What I will say here is I think the only thing that Unhindered could have done differently is instead of popping whatever TMR buff that he ran on Rain right at the start, I couldn't see which TMR it was, running that Astral Guard ability might have been a difference there, because Ibara would have targeted Rain rather than targeting Regalia Glaciella. And the fact that they were able to eat through Dario pretty quickly, you know, if Regalia Glaciella gets off 1, maybe even 2 AoEs there, that fight could have potentially been very, very different. So good matchup. I'm curious to see how Unhindered reacts in round 2, if he runs the same comp or something completely different. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right, so match number 2 of this series, we've got Joom showing up front with a very high attack stat, and JEBAW with a pretty high magic stat running that Summer Elsie. I do wonder what else is going on with the Summer Elsie. I don't know if he expected more fire. It looks like he actually covered for both. So he's running Summer Elsie and Oron. Oron for the wind units and Summer Elsie for the fire units. So very interesting strategy here. Has Winter Luartha way out on the side. Looking like a very similar setup to last time, except running Joom instead of Rain. The thing is, Joom is going to have hate, whereas Rain did not last time. So that could be a difference. Sweet support coming up, very nice AoE agility buff to make them very speedy, and I'm very curious to see what the SR unit Little Leela does. She does not have initial hate, so she needs to get in the fight and get off a taunting spell if you're trying to have her as a tank. Although he could be running Valve Love on her, that's very possible, I don't know. But Joom's going to walk forward, Oran's popping Bell, so he won't have any sort of AP issues in this fight. And let's see what Summer Elsie can do. She's charging a spell. And it looks like Winter Luartha has bells too. So the two kind of big physical carries, not going to have any AP problems. Joom taking up that damage pretty well, actually, 3,000. Zazan getting a little close to Joom. Hopefully Joom can step up and out of the way. Getting that Spirit up on Little Leela won't do much of anything in this fight because they're pretty much all physical attackers. That's actually very respectable damage for Joom, since that's your tank on the entire team. But can Oron eat through her? That's the question. Spirit Breaker, 5,500 damage. So pretty much, I think, in order for Unhindered to have a good chance, Joom probably needs to live like 2 more hits because, which unfortunately she does not. Oh, Zazan barely does live though. Winter Luartha is still out in fucking left field right now. Drops the Javelin Fall, almost kills the Summer Elsie. But unfortunately, she's going to get to go, actually, unless Zazan can kill her. Killer Cross does kill her, so that could be huge. This fight is not over. Unhindered still has a chance as a full health Winter Luartha right now. Can she kill both of these units is the question. What is the Little Leela channeling? She actually channels Cura. So very interesting. So instead of being a tank, she's actually running more of as a support. She does kill the Little Leela. The question is, Oron goes first. Can she one-shot Winter Luartha? 9,100 damage. She had about 8,800 health. Oh my god, so Oron gets the one-shot onto Winter Luartha. If he didn't kill her, there's no doubt in my mind that she kills Oron in the very next turn. So, oh man, that's brutal for Unhindered. Unfortunately, gets 2-0'd. I do think if Winter Luartha started just a little closer in that fight, I think he probably wins that, because it took quite a long time for her to really enter that fight, and she does a ton of damage. Overall, fantastic matchup though. Very, very close fight in round 2, and I think fight 1 could have been really, really close too if 1 or 2 things go slightly different. But overall, GG to JEBAW. Fantastic team. Love seeing the Summer Elsie in the Oron composition coming out too. Very, very fun match, and let's check out who we got next. All right, guys, so for match 2 here, we've got Dr. Dickhead versus JesusLBL. Dr. Dickhead of the guild Lapis and the team Golgari Swarm. Currently sitting at 1 point in the standing, so looking to try and upgrade on that. And we've got JesusLBL of the guild Get Swifty, who we've got a few members in the league, and the team the Strawhats, currently at 0 points. So both of these teams definitely wanting and needing a victory. And let's see how this kind of matchup looks. So first of all, Dr. Dickhead ran the same team every single match last week. He had 3 total games, and he ran Helena, Black Robed Witch, Mont Leonis, and Little Leela Halloween all together. Makes a lot of sense when you look at his team comp. They just sit so well together in terms of comp. You have a tank, you have a big damage dealer in Helena, and then you also have like a support / damage dealer in Little Leela Halloween. So very overall just good composition. Would not be surprised to see this comp again. The other one I think to look out for is the Lock Violet Mish combo. I think those are probably his 2 greatest teams that he can run. There's obviously some other things that he can flex in there, but those are the 2 that jump out to me. And in terms of JesusLBL, he ran Light Evade last week. I think that's a very solid composition in terms of what he has. I've said before that I think his team gets better once Final Fantasy Tactics rolls around, which is only a couple weeks away now. But the other thing that I think he could potentially do for now is instead of running Golgari, he could run Vistral as a 50 cost and then run that Leela the Bold Whisper combo, just because Leela the Bold is so incredibly good. And I wouldn't be shocked to see her this week, just in case that Dr. Dickhead does bring Evade, because Leela the Bold is so incredibly accurate. So without further ado, let's see how this match played out. All right, so our second matchup of the day, this is match 1 for them. We've got Dr. Dickhead on the left and Jesus on the right. Very high attack stat coming off from Jesus, which tells me that he's probably not bringing Starlight Elena, so it could be that Dark Squad with Vistral. And then Mont showing tells me that it's probably that standard composition from Dr. Dickhead, and we'll kind of see how this one goes. So it is what we expected here. And looking at the positioning, they've got Mont up in the front and Vistral up in the front. So Jesus, turn number 1, gets the reaction block rate and slash tech piercing rate up. Very good buff for this team, especially because all 3 are slash attackers. So very good turn 1 coming out from Jesus. Guardians fighting Spirit up. So I did get notice here from Jesus about his thought process in the match. He wanted to cover Spirit up just in case that he had these magic damage dealers, and then also brought Little Leela the Bold because of the threat of the evasion on the other side. He felt like he brought enough accuracy to his team here that he would be able to cover evasion, and then he also had TMRs to guard against the magic damage. So overall trying to cover for both comps at the same time. Meanwhile, Dr. Dickhead's Mont running forward. Little Leela does not get a second buff off, but that's not the end of the world. She's sitting pretty far in the back line, which is very strong. Level 4 Darker only does 1300 damage, unfortunately, to the Whisper. I think that actually did elite damage now that I actually see that. I would have to rewatch, but I think it did 1337. That's actually hilarious. But not looking great for Dr. Dickhead if that's all the damage you're doing to Whisper. She is somebody who can stack insane levels of magic resist if you want, and it looks like it's very possible that that's what they're doing. Taunting Blade lands, does not hit Vistral, so Jesus definitely running some evasion. But Halloween Little Leela's pretty accurate unit, hits Vistral, but he lives with barely any health. What is Black Rose Helena going to do? Is she going to drop a bomb on both of the units? She's taking her time. She's channeling a spell. I assume this is Black Rose's Hex. It's not. It's Black Rose Judgment, which is a guaranteed hit. So in order to kill the Vistral, she did that instead of a AoE damage. That kind of hurts. She does not have enough accuracy to guarantee she'll hit Vistral, so she only does a single target, and Little Leela takes her out in one hit. Other Little Leela. There's 2 Little Leelas. It's too confusing. Dr. Dickhead's Little Leela does have full life, though. Will she go for it here, or is she going to go for damage? That is the question. She ends up going for damage. I'm not sure if that's how her AI works, or if he has full life turned off. I'm not entirely sure. I don't play Little Leela Halloween a whole lot. Little Leela the Bold goes for the limit break. How much damage is it going to do? One shots the Halloween Little Leela, but she does have re-raise, so she's going to come back. Unfortunately, Mont is blinded also, and this team is somewhat dodgy, as we saw with the Vistral. So Little Leela, I have to imagine, is going to go for a heal here, with both units being fairly low on health. She goes for the high 2 Cura, gets herself to full, so that's important for sure. But Little Leela the Bold brings so much damage. If she hits her, she's probably going to go down in one hit again. And Mont actually can't even hit the Whisper. I just realized that. He used Discipline instead of auto-attacking because he's blind. He physically cannot hit Whisper right now. So that's pretty brutal. Is she going to go for another heal? She is. So can she keep Mont healthy enough through the amount of damage they bring while he's blinded? And he obviously has Stone Throw Mastery turned off too, because that's a guaranteed hit. The thing is, he's going to run out of hate shortly. Whether it's this turn or next turn, it's going to run out pretty soon. He did use Taunting Blade, so he had some additional hate right off the gate, but she should be able to hit for damage here. Does some pretty decent damage. Can't kill the little Leela though, which is important because I don't think she had Courage on in this fight. If she could have one-shot her, that probably ends the game. But she does get her heal back up. Is she going to hit? She hits both, and she one-shots Little Leela Halloween. That is brutal. So it looks like Jesus is probably going to pick up the win here. I don't see a scenario where Mont can come back here. But this might be a little bit of a wet noodle fight because Mont and Whisper are both very, very tanky. Actually, Little Leela's going to go with the Anima Esper Summon. This is actually really, really cool. I have never actually seen this in a battle in WoTV, so this is actually really dope. Visuals, very, very neat. Love that silence. Wow, it actually doesn't kill Mont. So she does more damage with that than she did with the auto attack, but doesn't kill her. Whisper procs the Courage, so Mont is just hanging on for dear life as long as he possibly can, but doesn't even have enough AP. Can't even kill Whisper. This is going to be a game 1 victory for Jesus, his first of the season, so congrats to him. Very, very interesting matchup. Trying to think in terms of Dr. Dickhead, like what he could have done differently to win this. And in terms of that team comp, honestly, I think it's pretty brutal because it's really hard for him to get through Whisper with those 2 magic damage dealers. It makes me wonder if he would run Evasion in the next fight to try and counteract this, because they might have more penetration than Black Rose Helena does in terms of like slash attack versus magic attack penetration. The problem is Little Leela is so incredibly accurate. I do think Jesus's team here kind of counters his team a little bit. I am curious to see what he does. Maybe he has something up his sleeve that I don't know about. But yeah, we'll see how it happens in game number 2. All right, so game number 2 here between Dr. Dickhead and Jesus. It looks like Jesus is running the same team back. Dr. Dickhead is going with that evasion. But as I said, Jesus' strategy here, the team that he set up, was to use TMRs to beat the magic team he thought that Dr. Dickhead might run, and then he also has Little Leela the Bold and plenty of accuracy in order to hit the evasion units. So he is very much prepped for this. Again, running that same buff as last time. Very good turn 1 setup, getting that slash attack piercing rate and reaction block on the whole team. Gets the AoE Spirit up. Again, won't do much in this fight other than maybe some Miche damage coming in. And the Boon of the Lion getting the area attack resist up. I absolutely love this full turn 1 rotation from Jesus. Dr. Dickhead, I'm curious if this is what he meant to do. I'm curious if he meant to just immediately run forward. It does immediately kill the Vistral, so this is a decent start. Doesn't get all the buffs on like the team and stuff like that, so she doesn't have Courage up, but Locke does have his AP Restore and Re-Raise, which could be crucial. What is Miche going to channel? Get the Toad off. The Toad does not land, but his Enhanced Toad does... Holy cow. I was going to say his Enhanced Toad does debuff your stats and stuff like that, but Little Leela the Bold is an absolute beast. She just comes up and one-shots the Violet, so this is brutal. So this is going to be a pretty hard carry from Locke. Can he pull this off? He actually does decent damage to the Whisper though, so that is a nice change compared to the Black Rose Helena, definitely doing much more than she did last fight. Drops the Toad, actually does land it this time against the Whisper. Oh man, but they brutally get one shot. Okay, so Locke has Reflex, so what can he do here? Can he AP hunt both of them? No, he only has 16 AP, so he takes out the Whisper. This is not over if he's able to just Reflex, but she has reaction block rate down, and that's going to be enough. Little Leela the Bold, way too accurate of a unit. She is just an absolute beast in terms of damage and all that kind of stuff. I do think, other than maybe Velis, she might be the best unit in the game. She's just an absolute nightmare to face. I think Dark is an incredibly strong element, and she is the main reason for that. But props to Jesus, coming up with a team where his buffs mitigated one of the teams he expected, and the one unit kind of countered the other team he expected. So rough matchup for Dr. Dickhead, but huge congrats to Jesus, now on the board with 3 points. And let's see what the third match brings today. All right, guys, so for match number 3, we've got my team and Soldier First Class coming from the guild Dead Akatsuki. Recently switched over guilds, actually. I used to be in the guild Thunder Gods, but we recently made kind of a guild merge to kind of just help both sides. We had a lot of members who, you know, were kind of losing interest in the game and different things like that. And we wanted to join a slightly more competitive guild and stuff like that. So we did recently switch over. So if you knew that I was in the guild Thunder Gods, that is why this switch happened. I do have a very good in real life friend who I vowed to basically just follow in terms of guilds wherever he goes, and he wanted to switch over too. So I said, yeah, let's do it. So anyway, that is what is with the guild change, in case you guys noticed that. And my opponent this week is SurfTaco, who won last week. He is from the guild Ohana. Ohana means family. Family means no one is left behind. So the Sheerans versus Soldier First Class. 3 points for him, 1 point for me. Immediately looking at this matchup in terms of my team, what I'm afraid of, I'm very much afraid of RNA Viktora. I think the pierce damage is a problem for me because my main 2 comps that I would say are like the kind of standard comps that I could run is Cloud Charlotte Liarte and Cloud Charlotte Naiah. So first of all, Cloud Charlotte Liarte, he's got a lot of units that resist missile just right out the gate, so she's not going to do as much damage against this team, most likely against units like Jaden or Viktora or stuff like that. They have good missile resist typically, so she's not going to do a ton of damage, unfortunately. Charlotte, her main weakness is pierce damage, and he has 2 absolute beasts of pierce damage, and not only 2, he has 3, right? So Glaciella, Viktora, and RNA are all actually threats for Charlotte, even though Charlotte has the elemental advantage against Glaciella. So very, very scary. But the 3 units I was most afraid of here were RNA, Viktora, and then to a somewhat lesser extent, Jaden. Just because Jaden has so much range, I was worried that Jaden could potentially snipe out a support that I brought, somebody like a Naiah, before the fight even starts. And if that happens, that puts me in a huge disadvantage. So these 3 were kind of the worry for me, right? Those were the people that I was expecting to see and could potentially be problems for me. So in order to counteract that, I can do one of 2 things. I can bring my standard comp and use buffs to get pierce resist up and also charm resist up, which is Viktora's limit break, which is also a huge fear of mine. If I get charmed, I think I probably just lose the fight. So that is one thing I could do. The other comp that I could bring is an evasion comp with Knight of Runestern and Venera and either Naiah or Liarte. And the reason that I think that is good is because I didn't do my research. I thought that RNA and Viktora didn't have guaranteed hits. They actually both technically have a guaranteed hit. Viktora's is lesser known or lesser used because it's sneak attack. She actually has to be behind the target to have a guaranteed hit, and it is also in her thief subjob, but a lesser known thing, but cool to know. And RNA actually, her most basic attack, Brandish Plus, actually is guaranteed hits. So they have guaranteed hits. Jaden has a guaranteed hit. Astrius has a guaranteed hit. So it's kind of tricky, but typically these ice units are not extremely accurate, so they do have to be really close range in order to hit those guaranteed hits. So basically, those were one of the 2 comps that I was thinking about in terms of my thought process. And SurfTaco in the first fight said that he kind of expected standard lightning, but wasn't entirely sure. So we'll see what teams we brought out, and I'll talk to you a little more about SurfTaco's thought process as the matches go on. All right, guys, so for the 3rd matchup today and game number 1 for this matchup, I kind of wanted to just give you a real quick glance at the team I ran for match 1, just to kind of show you my thought process. I broke it down a little bit. So we have Cloud. We've got him running Brigandine and running the Zombie Mask TMR. I also have him running Nightblade subjob because Nightblade has a AoE buff that buffs both missile and pierce resist. And if you remember, I said the problems I was worried about were both pierce and missile attackers. So I felt like that was a really good thing for him to get off turn 1, and then he can get re-raise off on turn 2. Charlotte, turn 1, I have her running Glorious Armor, and I actually have Vow of Love in the main VC here. Charlotte just got her Master Ability 2, which means she has 5 starting hate, and now with Vow of Love, she has 10 starting hate. Not only that, I'm also running Bowtie, and she has Thief Lore on, so basically she still has 3-1 move jump, and she has 12 hate to start the battle, which is a ton, and it's also important because this is nothing that can be dispelled or anything like that. And with this map, I wanted her to make sure to get her Glorious Armor buff off to start, and I thought that if she ran a track wall first, she might not get that second second buff off. So this is why I ran this setup instead of having the Scorpion Sentinel in the first spot there. So she has 12 hate, she can get Glorious Armor turn 1, and if she has time to buff again, she can get Kane's Dragoon Helmet off, which then gets her back up to 4 movement, which is nice, and also hastes her just to get her moving out quickly and stuff like that. With Naiah, again, like I said, my worry was that she would get sniped right out of the gate, so I'm actually running this Defense Bracer +5. This gives her missile resist of 25 in the first 3 turns, and again, my fear is that she gets sniped out in the first turn or 2. So this is very, very good for the value on her. And she is running a lesser used TMR, which is 9S's TMR. And this TMR is an AoE buff that nullifies a bunch of status effects, one of them being Charm. So if you are ever dealing with like a Sottily or something like that is becoming a problem for Charm, if you have 9S, his TMR might be something that's worth running. So that is how I built this team. So just wanted to give you guys a quick glance of my setup here. And as we look at the screen here, we've got Jaden here with 2600 magic and a decent attack stat. So I'm expecting Jaden, a Time Mage, and Viktora with this setup. You're going to see that that is what SurfTaco is bringing. And SurfTaco kind of told me, well, I'll just save it for later in the fights, a little bit more of what his thought process was. But as you see, here is the matchup. And get the battle start going. So in terms of buffs, he's got Chel, right? So Chel is going to pop haste on these units, get them to act quickly, or potentially quicken on these units to get them acting quickly. Jaden pops March of the Stag to get the agility up, and Viktora actually pulled out Combat Supercharge, which is an accuracy up and move up. So even though he kind of expected lightning, is still prepping a little bit for that evasion to make sure that he's accurate enough to hit. In my turn 1 movement, like I said, Cloud walks in, pops the Nightblade buff, Charlotte will walk up, and then Naiah will get regen and charm resist on the entire team. So I am basically not afraid of Viktora Limit Break anymore. And Magic Blast only hitting for 1674. Charlotte is very, very good against magic users. Gets the Quicken off, and now I'm a little afraid that he'll get an AoE Magic Blast off, but apparently, I don't know if it's this tree in the map, but for some reason he could actually not reach an AoE Magic Blast there, which is huge, because if he did, Naiah would have died right here, and she does not. So she barely lives the Viktora. She lives 1 hit, which is huge. I just want her alive to be able to get heals off, and Cloud gets the Limit Break, which actually gets rid of Viktora's 100% damage shield, so he one-shots her. So this is a pretty good start for me. And now the biggest thing is I need Naiah to heal Charlotte up to get her back up to full health. And Chel is just going to keep quickening Jaden, getting him to try and eat through the team. But as we said before, Jamming Thrust 25-20 on the Charlotte. She's just very, very good against magic damage. So at this point in the fight, I'm feeling pretty confident with Viktora being dead. Naiah gets the Cura Benevolent off, CT slightly up, and gets a pretty big heal. Charlotte has Frostbite, unfortunately, so she can't really do much of anything. She's just going to walk forward. That Viktora Frostbite is absolutely brutal. It is a brutal status effect. So 1100 damage. It's basically just going to be my team trying to chase down his while he kites back. And Cloud now does get the re-raise off, so you're going to have to kill him twice. That's going to be pretty difficult for only Chel and Jaden to pull off. Naiah's going to walk forward, and now she's going to start channeling Reflect. So this is... I love Naiah's AI. She goes for AoE buffs first and then does Reflect, so she was able to use the 9S TMR. Now gets to Reflect on Charlotte. Jamming Thrust hits Jaden in his own face, doing 3,800 damage. So very, very cool tech there by Naiah. And Charlotte, slowly but surely, is going to walk forward and be able to hit Jaden in the face here for 1726. So Cloud actually pops a double resist because he can't get forward and deals damage. So unfortunately, instead of walking forward like I'd like him to do, he just walks back and buffs. So Naiah actually gets a magic reflex on the Magic Blast Plus. I don't think this really matters in the grand scheme of the fight, but is very nice because she has full health. If she were to get hit by that, she would have just healed herself right here. But Jaden then again would have just auto-attacked. I think she would have gotten the channel off because her casting time is pretty damn quick. So I think she would have healed the full. So I don't think this matters in the fight. And as you guys can see, it looks like I'm going to win fight 1. This is going to be kind of a slow bleed just because it's only Chel left alive. And we have to just kind of get through her. But again, Naiah's going to pop another heal. So she's going to get that heal off. Like I said, her casting time is very quick. I don't think that magic reflex would have mattered. I don't know how much damage this one would have done. But like I said, we have Cloud at full health still with a reflex, so it's going to be hard for him to kill our team. It's just about that movement. Normally, this team that I ran has much more movement than it does. This map specifically, I kind of minimized their movement because I wanted them to be able to get their buffs off rather than just running too far forward and not doing that. So, but Naiah is an absolute beast. Just keeps healing, keeps getting CT ups and all those good things. Cloud should walk forward. Braver will easily one-shot the Chel, and we take match 1. All right, guys, so for me versus SurfTaco match 2, again, I get to show you a little bit more when it's my team comp because I get to show you my equipment and VCs and all that kind of good stuff. So I wanted to show you what I ran for match 2 here. And so my general thought process here was that I'm going to bring Liarte, and I expect him to run full Pierce attack. The reason I expect him to run that is because I think he looks at match 1 and sees Jaden didn't do nearly as much as Aranea probably could have. Had Aranea, Viktora both ran forward at my team and both got an attack off immediately, I honestly think I probably lose that match 1 because I have almost no doubt in my mind that Naiah dies. And if Naiah dies, it makes that match much, much harder for me because I don't have any form of sustain against their team. So in my mind, I figured he's probably going to run ice and I'm going to run evasion to try and counter that. Because again, at this point in my mind, I only knew of Aranea's Brandish Plus guaranteed hit. I didn't even know about Viktora's guaranteed hit, but I figured I would probably get dodgy enough that they would have to use the guaranteed hits to even be able to hit me. So in terms of gear, I have the +6 SR armor. It's escaping my brain in terms of what the name is for Knight of Ruinstern, but it gives a really solid evasion stat. I believe it's 20. Also have a +5 ribbon on him to give that plus evasion bonus on the passive. This isn't nearly as high of damage as I could be running with him, but I wanted him to be as pretty much as evady as possible. So then I have him running the Skycutter Greatsword TMR from Schutzelt. So you can get the attack stat pretty high on the TMR just because it's in TMR weapon. Have him running Demon Chimera, Esper, and VC with the Exorcist's VC in the sub slot. I just wanted one more VC in terms of damage among the party, and I felt like this would give him a decent triple hit ability and also be able to pump up that slash pen for Venera as well. So she actually is running Vistral's TMR, which gives evasion and it's a weapon, so it's very, very nice in terms of utility. I have her running the bow tie because I wanted her to get a buff off before she ran up and hit somebody. I didn't want her to hit on turn 1, and I also wanted to skew the party to be able to basically come into a clump and get their buffs off together. And she's also running +6 Santa Claus and has the Tetrasylphid Esper there. And then in terms of Liarte, all I'm really looking for her to do instead, and like I said, because I thought I was running against Pierce, I didn't know if Naiah would have as much utility because I thought if the Pierce people actually do hit me, I'm gonna die in one hit. So healing doesn't really help me, and Reflect's not gonna help because I'm only gonna go against physical damage. So I brought Liarte instead, hoping to just get a little more chip damage. If she does land a stop arrow or something like that, that's fantastic. And I want her running Locke's TMR to get an AoE agility and luck buff off, and then Ruinstern will run Illusion to get an evasion party buff off. So let's see if it actually works out the way I planned. I ultimately wanted to get evasion, agility, and luck all off on the entire party in terms of my buffs. And as you can see here, it does look like he is running that Aranea Viktora setup with a Time Mage Chel in the background. So this is the team that I expected. I know SurfTaco was hoping not to face this. He thought that I would go Lightning again. He very much told me this. But this fight is an absolute banger though, so we're going to see how it actually plays out. So immediately looking at his position, he flipped sides completely, and this is very, very scary to me because now I know there's a good chance I'm not going to get my buff rotation off like I originally planned. So fantastic positioning for him. I don't know if he predicted me to start on this side, but his spear units are running forward immediately. So Venera gets the Blood Pact off and steps into the middle, but Stern, instead of buffing, gets Mighty Break off on Aranea. So it does about 3,600 damage, decent damage, but not crazy. Liarte reflexes this hit. I do think this kills in one hit. She gets 1,378 damage off in the fight, so not a ton. But it is notable. It is 1,378, and just keep that number in mind that she did that much damage. So I'm going to point out that Naiah has 4,265 health right now, and Liarte gets killed. So all Liarte did in the fight was 1,300 damage and dropping Naiah down to 4,200. So Naiah gets the guaranteed hit off on Venera. So immediately, this is looking very, very grim for me. It's 3v1. Viktora and Naiah both have haste, and Chel backing them up. So he's going to pop the barrier breaker on Naiah. It did 4,300 damage on a crit. So that reflex was notable just for the kill on Naiah, because Naiah likely would not have died, and Viktora actually gets the behind the back sneak attack, so she has that guaranteed hit. Runestern does have a 100% shield, so does Viktora, and he pops it, so neither one have their shield at this point. But again, I wanted to point out that Naiah would not have died had Liarte got that reflex, so Naiah would have been alive. Runestern probably would have walked forward and auto-attacked her to kill her instead of Viktora. At this point, Viktora is unable to hit Runestern because she is buffing in his face, so she does not have enough accuracy to hit him unless she can get behind him. And he conveniently has a tree behind him at this point. So now she's behind him, so she has a chance to hit because it's like an extra 15%, but it's got to be low. It's got to be 15 or less percent or 30 or less percent chance to hit. He does move away from the tree though, so it is possible that they could hit him, but they have to get behind him in order to do that. At this point, it is not physically possible for them to hit him otherwise, and we have 15 turns left. So the question is, can they get behind him to hit him, or can he kill them both before turns end? So this is kind of one of the most wild, weird endings to a fight that I've seen. So he walks up, pops the Night Veil, gets good damage onto both. Chel does not have heals, unfortunately, like Phoebe does. I do wonder if he had brought Phoebe, if Phoebe would have been able to like heal them up, or full life RNA or something like that. I do genuinely think that if he brought Phoebe, this fight maybe turns out differently. As Runestern gets the auto attack onto Chel, Viktora is just going to sit there, unfortunately, and it's rough, but unfortunately SurfTaco is going to lose this as Knight of Runestern pulls off the 3v1 and gets the Hien at the very end. I will fully acknowledge that I got lucky in this fight. That reflex by Liarte doesn't seem important because she gets hit on the very next AoE, like the very next attack, but she did 1,300 damage, and Knight of Runestern's attack that killed Naiah did 4,300, and Naiah had 4,200 health. So without that tiny bit of damage that Liarte gets, I don't think I win this fight, because I think it's likely that Naiah or Viktora is able to get 2 behind the back attacks instead of 1. I don't know that for sure, but it's definitely possible it could have impacted the fight. So that being said, GG to SurfTaco. Really awesome match. Also, we played some for fun matches after this with different team comps, and he destroyed me twice in a row. So I really hope I don't see him in the playoffs, because I do think that he has my team figured out, and I do think that he will destroy me if I see him again. So I'm glad I got the win this time. Hope I don't see him in the playoffs, and let's check out the next match. All right, guys, matchup number 4 out of our 5 total. We've got Spike versus MaechenX. So unfortunately, both of them took an L last week, but MaechenX did manage to get a point in his first match there, so he's not at 0 currently. But should be a really, really interesting matchup here. So Spike, again from the guild Dead Akatsuki, like I said, I am from. His team, Bebop's crew, looking for that first W, and MaechenX from the guild Lucis and the Wondrous Shoopufs, looking to capitalize on their 1 point from last week. So looking at these team comps, last week, Spike ran Sodali, McLeod, and Nasha twice in a row. I do think that team is actually very respectable, and like I pointed out, if a couple things go differently, I think he could have potentially beat Turambar's team, which in my opinion is one of the best in the entire league, if not the best. It's very, very strong. So I think that's definitely a matchup that we could see. Expecting or seeing so much ice on MaechenX's team though, I would love to see a Raldor come out. I think the fire beating ice is a big thing. The only problem that I would see here is that they do have Frostbite on MaechenX's team, which I think Frostbite could potentially shut down Raldor. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. I could also see him bringing something like a Moraga or Noctis, who is pretty bulky versus physical. But somebody like Eliza has got so much penetration, it's going to be tricky. So very curious to see what Spike brings out. I don't know if he'll expect the Sweetheart Solir or the Eliza. I expect one of them to come out from MaechenX because I think they're both just incredibly good 90 cost units. And ultimately, I don't expect Evade to really come out from MaechenX. It's very possible, but Noctis has guaranteed hits. And, you know, actually looking at this team comp, maybe he would run Evasion just because I think Noctis might be the only one with a guaranteed hit. And I don't know they have a ton of accuracy on Spike's team, so he might run that. But very curious to see how it ends up. And let's check out this match 1 here. All right, our 4th matchup today, game number 1, we've got Spike versus MaechenX. I'll bring the Grace. So something new coming out from Spike, at least. Not sure if MaechenX's team is going to be any different or not, but very excited to see a different composition coming out from him. And we'll see what he paired up here. So it's going to be Grace, Noctis, Raldor. So he is bringing the fire unit. So the biggest question to me is, can Raldor evade getting frostbitten? If so, I think he can absolutely delete this other team. They're not going to have a ton of strike resist. It's just whether or not he can, and especially with bells up, right? If he gets frostbitten, that's the big thing. I will say though, Ildira seeming like a very smart bring by MaechenX here to kind of counteract that threat of Raldor coming in. So Grace and Noctis going to get off an AoE buff. Noctis does get a magic attack resist buff, so I'm not sure if he expected Ildira or Sweetheart's Leer. Raldor takes very, very little damage from that, but did he get frostbitten? I think he did. It was hard to see. Ildira going to pop the limit break just to help that CT up with the party. So MaechenX looking to just get more turns off. And this is a brilliant move by him, actually, because Curry is able to go again immediately. The level 4 water gun, a lot of damage on a Raldor, and he is frostbitten. Will he be able to get done anything? Apparently, Curry must not have been able to kill Raldor there because he targeted the Noctis. And holy shit, Warning Volley popping 7,700 damage on Noctis. This is looking pretty brutal for Spike to start this matchup. Honestly, this map is pretty decent for these archers, especially with Ildira's CT up, being able to just spray from the backline. And like I said, that frostbite is brutal. Unfortunately, Raldor doesn't even get an ability off. He has to walk up and auto attack the Eliza. I have to imagine that he would have been able to kill the Eliza in one hit, maybe even do some damage to Ildira too. Unfortunately, gets taken out by the party, and this looks like a pretty hard counter by MaechenX here. So very, very nice setup by him with the dual archer and the CT up mechanic. Clean Piercer's going to take out Grace, and that is a quick game 1. Spike's going to have to come up with something to counteract this. I'm very curious to see what he brings. But yeah, GG to MaechenX, and let's see how match 2 goes. All right, game number 2 here between Spike and MaechenX. It's looking like Spike is probably going with the team that I thought was very solid from last week, the Spike, McLeod, and Sottily team. And I think Machen is saying, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's running the same comp as last time. So up to this point, we've had nothing but 2-0s today, which is surprising because we had 3-2-1 series last week. Let's see if Spike can be the first person to take the series to a game 3. And it is the Naiah McLeod Sottily team. Let's see if this fares any differently. As long as Sottily can sit in the backline, which apparently is not the case. Oh my gosh, Sottily is out in front. Curry might be able to hit him too. That is really bad for Spike. That's brutal. Sottily gets taken out immediately, and this is immediately a 3v2. I don't know if he thought he would have the agility upper hand and he'd be able to walk forward and limit break. That Sottily is very, very far forward. I wonder if that was almost like a mistake by Spike, if he flipped his units around and meant to have McLeod or Naiah far forward and Sottily on the back. That he's like so far forward, I wonder if that was either a mistake or just trying to immediately blow them up. I don't know, but that's a brutal start for Spike, and McLeod and Naiah are going to have to do some heavy lifting here to overcome this. Frostmaw Barrage landing on the Naiah. Not sure if she got frostbitten. I didn't see anything come up. I actually don't know if that's 100% guaranteed frostbite either. I really should look that up for Curry because I'm not entirely certain. She does get frostbitten, and it didn't show the words to my knowledge, so it makes me wonder if it's a 100% chance. Binding Javelin does a ton of damage to Eliza. Unfortunately does not one-shot her, but a ton of damage. She does have bells on, though, so she's going to be able to get an attack off. It is into the tank, it looks like. So how much damage is this going to do to Naiah is the question. 7,758. Naiah is a very tanky girl, so she's still going to live it. But that's pretty brutal. I have to imagine Ildira is going to go for a heal on Eliza. She does, gets a height 2 Kira off, but not a ton of healing. Does Binding Javelin drop healing power down? I actually didn't notice if it does that, but that's not a lot of heal. Naiah walking forward. She is frostbitten, but what can she get done here? She's channeling a spell. She channels Esuna. I had no idea that she could even do that. That Naiah could do that. That's actually a really cool tech against the Frostbite. That's very, very cool. Eliza's going to go again, though. She's outspeeding the McLeod, which is brutal. Maddening arrow into Naiah. She lives because of the courage. Does not get berserked. Ildira probably going to go for another heal, though. Although McLeod did a ton of damage. If that heal only does 2,700, I think McLeod might be able to one-shot the Eliza. Taking your time. Binding Javelin comes through. Does kill the Eliza, and I just saw it does do healing power down. So that's actually a really, really good ability. McLeod is very much worth the 50 cost, in my opinion. And honestly, this fight... I mean, it's still 2v1. It's possible that McLeod could win this, but this fight, I think, looks very different if Sottily doesn't get sniped out at the beginning. Like, he got killed before he did anything, and that's 100 cost of your team immediately going down. Can McLeod get some AP up? Arrow Shield Melody. The problem is Curry still has that Frostbite, I believe, which he has plenty of AP for. I expect to see that Frostmaw Barrage or whatever it's called. Looks like our game's taking a little bit of time. That's okay. Frostmaw Barrage does come through. So yeah, McLeod's going to be frostbitten, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because I like to see 3-game sets. So can McLeod AoE both of these guys? No, he's not going to be able to because he's not going to have any AP. Speaking of units like McLeod that overperform at 50 AP, like Curry is one of those units. He is an absolute monster with that Frostbite. Poison Arrow comes out for 838 damage, and I believe Ildira should just take him out here to end this series. Take your time, Ildira. We got all day. Don't worry about it. Hey. All right, Heist Bait Water comes through. 2391 does end the series. So yeah, unfortunately, I think very similar to week 1. Like, I know Spike is 0-2. I know he hasn't won a game yet. But that McLeod, Naiah Sottily comp, I really think is no joke. Like, if Sottily doesn't get popped right at the beginning, like, what if he walks up and charms Eliza? Like, and then she just drops a ton of damage onto that team. Like, that could have been very, very different, I think, in game 2. And I said very, very similar thing from week 1. So even though Spike is going to end the week with 0 points, I do think he has some very respectable things. And I think if he cleans up that positioning a little bit, he could definitely have some good weeks. So GG to MaechenX, getting another 3 points, putting him up to 4. So yeah, let's see. We've got one more matchup between two 1-0 teams. Should be a banger, and let's see how it goes. All right, guys, for the final matchup of the day, we've got two 1-0 teams. So the winner of this will be tied for first with JEBAW at 6 points, and the loser will either be at 3 or 4. So either tied for third or fourth or fifth or something like that. So we'll see how it goes. We've got two guildmates here, so I had to save this for the last matchup. Both from the guild Get Swifty. Turambar is actually the guild leader. I absolutely love that guild name. Very, very much love that. I love Rick and Morty, so very cool guild name. Turambar in the Fire Ferrets, Sandrooster in the Slim Chance Brigade. Let's see how this goes. I think these are two of the most powerful teams in the entire league, if I had to say so. I think the Joker Garvel Ronell comp is very, very strong. And I also think having that Sakura and Engelbert together, both at 70 cost, is very, very powerful. Sakura is a beast for a 70 cost unit, and so is Engelbert. And the fact that you could run that with either a Lastwall or Garvel, he is the only team in the entire league that can run 3 UR units currently. So until our supplemental draft, where somebody could potentially draft a 70 cost unit that's out there, he's the only team that can run 3 UR units. Very, very good team overall. And in terms of Sandrooster, I would expect probably Mono Dark out of his team comp. I think running his Fire Mages is a very good option. Also running something like Esther's Cahal Murmur might work. But I think Garvel would probably eat up Esther, and Sakura would also eat up Esther. So very curious to see what they bring out. And let's see what happens in match 1. All right, guys, so final matchup here. Game number 1, we've got Garvel and Summer Ketone showing. So it looks like probably the Fire Squad from Sandrooster, and then Garvel and either the Light or the Dark with him. So very, very curious to see what happens here. And it is the Light pairing with Garvel versus the Fire Mages. So very curious to see how this goes. This Fire Mage squad is pretty strong. One thing I will say is that Sakura brings courage removal, so that could potentially be good against Terra. But it looks like getting an AoE buff off on Terra here is a good start. Greater Chi Barrier, not a surprise from Garble. I think he's just a very good standalone unit, so I think a very good unit to pair with this light composition. And I think the biggest thing here is that we have Engelbert tanking up. He is not very strong against magic damage though, so curious to see how fast Sandrooster can get through that. I think the biggest thing that comes down to is how fast can you kill Engelbert versus is Sakura able to get AoEs off? That's the question to me. Actually not a ton of damage against Engelbert. Engelbert actually did fairly well there, I would say. But we got the limit break coming through from Terra. Procs the courage, so pretty quick removal of Engelbert other than one more hit they need to get. They are standing next to each other, so can the units get some sort of AoE off? Garble does not. Gets the jamming thrust off on Terra, so that's a good start. And she actually reaches the limit break. I assume this only hits Terra, but maybe it hits both. It's actually got pretty good height range. It must have a height range of 2, I believe. So it actually removes the Terra, and Terra did not get courage off in this fight. Maybe Sandrooster knows about the courage removal, so he decided not to go with courage there. I'm not entirely sure. But Ishola should remove Engelbert here with the Scion's Fire, which he does. How much damage can Summer Ketone get off? Pretty good damage here. Pretty solid damage. The only thing is they're going to go back to back here. Jamming Thrust goes off on Ishtola. So now the question is, can Sakura one-shot Summer Ketone? Sakura does bring a ton of damage. She has a ton of penetration, if you guys don't know. And Rending Bright Blade actually removes barriers. So that kills Summer Ketone, who had the shield on. So very good win by Turambar. I'm curious to see how Sandrooster can change this up. I think probably... I don't know. It's pretty tricky for his team, to be honest. I think the biggest weakness that his team has is versus magic damage, and he unfortunately doesn't have a tank. That's kind of like the biggest drawback to his squad. So I think the biggest thing he could do is just initial positioning changing, maybe. But I'm not entirely sure. I know he's got a big old brain, so we'll see how he changes it for match 2. All right, guys, so match number 2 here between Sandrooster and Turambar, and I'm very excited because I received thought process from both of these players, and I kind of wanted to share the thought process that they shared in this video here. So Turambar, or rather I should start with Sandrooster, he brought the Fire Mages this week because he felt like it was very likely that Turambar would bring the full dark, and he didn't have enough dark resist that he could stack up on Lucio that he felt like it was worth it. He felt like his fire team brought a good chance against the dark comp. Obviously, that is not how it played out in match 1. Turambar actually brought the duo light, which Turambar did that because he was expecting Lucio to show up match 1. He expected Lucio because he can get such insane dark res, and he built his team around that fact. He also felt like Sakura was the key in this matchup because she has both barrier break and courage removal, which is effective against Sandrooster's 2 main mages. So very, very cool thought process coming out from both of these players. But let's see what happens at this match here. So the limit break comes out and one-shots Ishtola, and now Terra is in range of Sakura here, which is pretty brutal because Sakura has Rebel Intention probably coming up. I will say Sandrooster let me know that he was not aware that Sakura had Rebel Intention courage removal. So he said his biggest flaw here this week is that he did not prep enough for Sakura. He really felt like Turambar was going to run full dark, and because of that he didn't study enough in terms of Sakura's kit, and he really felt like that was the biggest reason for losing or kind of getting stomped, especially in this match 2 here. So absolutely awesome win for Turambar here. He's going to be at 6 points, tied overall with JEBAW. Very interesting to hear their thought process from both sides. Sandrooster very much basically saying that he didn't feel like he prepped enough or didn't study enough in terms of what Sakura's kit is, and he also felt like the major weakness is he kind of discovered his own weakness among his team was not having a tank. He felt like if he had some sort of tank to take hits that he could have had a chance in this fight, but he really had no way to prevent Sakura from just walking up and hitting whoever she wanted. So very interesting thought process from him. And again, Turambar had a lot of good thoughts on it as well, just saying that he felt like Sakura was the counter to the fire team, which I agree. And also not only the counter to the fire team, but she would eat up Esther too. So very good by him, kind of discovering that weakness in Sandrooster's team being that magic damage and not having a tank. So very cool change up from him, not going with his dark team this week. Well, guys, I'm sorry that we didn't have any game 3s in our matches. All of our sets today were 2-0s, which is kind of hard to believe, but it is what it is. There were still some banger matches, and it was very entertaining to watch for me. I hope it was entertaining for you guys to watch too. Let's take a look at the standings at how it plays out after week 2. So we have a two-way tie between JEBAW and Turambar. The Sappers and the Fire Ferrets both sitting up at 2-0 with 6 total points in the standings. Me, the Soldier First Class, and MaechenX Wondrous Shoopufs both have 4 points. So climbing up a little bit, we are now tied for 3rd with 1 loss and 1 mitigated loss, 4 points. And we have a 4-way tie for 5th right now. And if you guys don't remember, top 6 make the playoffs. It is a 9-week season, so we have plenty of games to go. But SurfTaco, Sandrooster, Unhindered, JesusLBL, Edge, Sheerans, Slim Chance Brigade, Perfect Storm, and the Strawhats all tied at 3 points with 1 loss and 1 full loss, or 1 win and 1 full win. Dr. Dickhead alone in 9th place with 1 point, 0, 1, and 1. And unfortunately, Spike 0, 2, 0. But I know that he will get some points. Hopefully not this next week as I play him in week 3. But we'll see how it goes. So let's check out some of the other stats here. Kill leaders in terms of the first 2 weeks. Don't pay attention to that one. It's week 2. But Ibara, number 1 in the entire league with 7 kills with 2.33 kills per match, or kills per game, however you want to term that. Lilo the Bold was not on this scoreboard at all last week, but she got 6 kills. She got all 6 this week in those 2 matches. 3 kills per match. Garvel with 6, 1.5 kills per match. RNA, Cloud, and Terra all at 5 kills. With 1.67 kills per match for RNA and 1.25 for Cloud and Terra. Sakura with 4 kills, all coming this week as she didn't play week 1. 2 kills per match. Knight of Ruinstern had all 3 of my kills in that match, so he has 3 total. Lucia and Sweetheart Slayer both have 1.5 per match with 3 kills total. In terms of assist leaders after the first 2 weeks, my girl Naiah with 7 total, 2.33 per match, so she's had 3 matches, 7 total assists. 3 different units, all with 6 assists, so Whisper and Vistral, both for the Strawhats, both having 6 assists, and Dario Horn as well. Renell, Joker, Chel, and Ravis all have 5 assists total, and then Ildira and Joom with 4 assists down at the bottom of the top 10. Coming to the KDA leaders, Ibara with a perfect 9 KDA. This does not surprise me. I have said many times before how fantastic of a unit that I think Ibara is. She is 702, 7 kills, 2 assists, 0 deaths, hasn't died to this point in her matches. Just very, very impressive. Garvel also with a 9 KDA, but does have 1, so it's technically not a perfect 9 KDA. 6, 1, and 3. Ravi's at 8, 3, 1, and 5, also very impressive. Leela, Sakura, and Joker all with perfect 6 KDAs, but Leela with 600, Sakura 402, Joker 105, a couple other units with 6 KDAs, although they do have a death, Renell and Whisper, and then Ildira with the perfect 5 KDA hasn't died yet, and Luartha Winter 2, 1, and 3 in number 10. So guys, I hope you guys are enjoying this Draft League series so far. I'm very excited for week 3. I did change up some of the layout in my video this week, so I hope it was a little more enjoyable and a little more easy to watch. Please leave me feedback down below on anything that you think we can improve on for the league and stuff like that. But yeah, very, very excited to see how this goes forward. I am going to make at least 1 video, if not 2, in the next week or so, going over some Final Fantasy 13 things. And yeah, should be really, really exciting. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.